I'm going again.
His biggest strength is his greatest weakness. He's always climbing.
Climbing is such a technical activity where being strong indeed does help, but being technical helps even more. And if I was to sum up all those tips, tricks, and techniques into just one good cohesive phrase, I think I would say something like stay low. Let's take a look at, say, this gray jug. What happens if we try to get above it? Well, first off, our grip, the register we have, is no longer a pull, but it turns into a push. And now it's like a push in a dig, where we're gonna have to apply in order to keep ourselves against the wall, which is kind of hard to do. If we hit it at that middle point, it's not too bad, but we can make it better by dropping the elbow completely beneath the hold. When we're completely beneath the hold, and when we're low beneath the hold, it gives our register upon the hold a greatness, and therefore makes it a lot easier to pull through. And the higher we pull up, the harder it becomes to continue to pull up. So generally speaking, in order to generate force to get good register, we always want to be low. I'm gonna go ahead and do a simple traverse. The first way I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna try to stay relatively high with my arms bent. And sure, while doing it this way isn't super difficult for me at the moment, it's also just not the best possible way that I could go about it, keeping my center of mass super high. But if I was to allow my body weight to just sag into my arms, that's nice, and allow my gravity, or the gravity, to just sink into my body using just straight arms, the amount of register I get on the hold increases. But that's not the only thing that increases, because you might find that you have difficulty keeping your feet onto the wall, but the reason why you're having difficulty keeping your feet on the wall is because when you try to keep your feet onto the wall, let's say this green hold, what you're also doing is you're trying to keep your upper body high. Therefore, you're literally pulling your feet off of the wall. Instead, what you want to do is, instead of pull your feet off of the wall, how can your feet stay on the wall if you're pulling it off of it? That's right, you want to sink down into the wall. So instead of being like that, I'm gonna place my feet on, and then I'm gonna sink down into it. And by sinking down, gravity is gonna help push that feet into the wall, as opposed to fighting it by pulling it off of the wall and ripping it away. Therefore, if you're having trouble keeping your feet on the wall, 9 times out of 10 times, it's because you keep pulling it off of the wall instead of just sinking it into the wall by extending your arms and being confident in the tension you have between your hands and your feet. A simple drill that you can do to feel what I feel and to let you know that your body does know how to stay on the wall. Finding 2 good jugs, find a good feet, right? Doesn't really matter. And then from here, we're gonna start in this extended position with the feet on the wall. And then I want you to pull up higher, higher, higher. Keep pulling until your feet completely lifts off the ground. And that right there should let you know that a lot of the times, the reason why your foot slips is because you just pulled it off of the wall instead of sinking it down low. And that should let you know that it's good to climb down low. One of the great things about climbing down low is the vast majority of it is done with the minimum amount of bend required. Let's assume I'm going off of this gray jug to, say, this red hold over here. Hopefully you can see. And then, so if I was to go from a down low position like this, reach, excellent. Not much happened there, not a lot of shifting of momentum. My arms stay relatively straight. With a relatively straight arm that remains straight throughout the whole time, that means I didn't have to absorb any shock. But let's say I was to pull on it and try to get higher. By doing so, right, I'm gonna pull up, and then as I come down, you see that little bit of downward motion? Even though that little bit of downward motion means absolutely nothing to me at the current moment in terms of this movement, because it's kind of relatively easy, it does mean that I wasted time and energy absorbing the shock. One more time, if I go with a nice low position, keeping my torso, body, hips as low as I can, from here, arms straight, I really didn't absorb any shock right there. But if I was to go ahead and pull up, and now that little bit of kick back right there, meant I had to expend a certain amount of energy absorbing that shock. And while addition to staying low and using, less energy, there's also a great factor known as control. Let me tell you something. When you're pulling on a hold, and let's just say say you're super strong, right? And if you pull on the hold hard enough, your hand will lift off of the hold when your elbow starts to rise past it. And therefore, it's a lot more better and more control if you always keep that elbow as low and deep as you can while pulling on it still. We don't ever really want to see this elbow rise if we can help it. Sometimes we can't help it. Therefore, we want to keep it low. Keeping it low is going to help keep the register on the hold a lot better. And the higher it rises, the worse the hold becomes. So by trying to stay as low as we can, even if we need to reach, let's go for a reaching style move right here. So even if we need to reach, I'm going to try to keep my elbow close to the wall. Keep it close to the wall. It's going to give me the most amount of register onto the hold. But let's say I get a little bit lazy and I decide to pop out my elbow, right? So with my elbow, you and I were both shocked in that moment. Basically what happened was I tried to lift my elbow up, and what happened was I did no longer have any register on this hold. Therefore, it felt like I was just gonna happen like that. So something to keep in mind when we're trying to climb low, even if we have to bend the arm, by keeping the elbow as low as we can into the wall, like that, we're gonna maintain the most amount of register that we can and get the most control out of our reach. But sometimes, again, some situations will force our elbow to be up, but unless we're in those situations, we wanna keep it directly beneath the hold, even through the bending of the arm. We can really see this low elbow action come into play on this low start problem where it's red and gray, and I have this good black foothold. If I was to try to start with my elbows high like that, there's just no way. Even if I could somehow pull myself into the wall, I don't have enough downward force to actually elevate my body off of the wall. So from here, I'm really gonna try to keep my elbows close to the wall, keep them pulling directly down from here, and then I'm able to actually hit this position. But if I just try to pull backwards, it's hard. A little bit doable, but it is very difficult, and the register feels like it's gonna slip immediately. But that does bring to the question, if I want to maintain this downward force and I want to pull myself into the wall, how do I do that without lifting up my elbows? And the solution is actually, we're just gonna squeeze our back with the elbows down. Same example as before. This time I'm gonna pull down and then I'm gonna squeeze my back to bring my torso closer to the wall. From here, I'm pulling down and then I'm squeezing my back. And I get the same action, but without actually having to necessarily whip my arms or elbows high into the air like that, which will give me poor register. One more time, I'm gonna pull down just to get the downward force necessary to lift off. And then if I wanna suction myself into the wall, I'm just gonna squeeze my back like that. Down, up, whoops, down, and then squeeze my back. Now, I know you saw that my elbow drifted backwards a little bit. Can't be helped, but the action here was the squeezing of the back. To be honest, I never climbed like that. Not to say climbing like that is bad or anything, it's just, wow, that felt kind of weird, honestly. I'm just not used to it. Back onto the topic of how to climb low, because if you've been climbing for a while now and you find that you're more of this really bent arm style of a climber and you find it really difficult to straighten the arm and allow your feet to take off the low, I concocted a couple drills for you to try that will 100% work 100% of the time they work. Arguably one of my favorite drills that I use all the time while I'm warming up on easy climbs, just getting into the motion of the ocean. And all it really is just the straight and weight drill. You're gonna take a position. Doesn't really matter which position. You're gonna take a position. From here, you're gonna straighten your arms. With your arms straightened, you're gonna release the arm, and then you're gonna relax. Relax with the straight arm. Get comfortable. 5-10 seconds. And then when you make your next move, even though you're in a bent position, you're gonna straighten the arms again. Relax. 5-10 seconds. Get accustomed to feeling the weight in your hands and the weight in your feet. We don't want to feel the weight in our arms, we want to feel it in our hands and our feet. But that does bring to the forefront a slight problem. Climbing with straight arms will tend to be a bit more finger intensive as opposed to climbing with bent arms. For most people, including me, it's much easier to hold onto bad crimpy holds with a bent arm position like so, as opposed to completely straight like that. Main reason being is that when your arms are slightly bent, you get a little bit more muscle recruitment from your arms and your back, as opposed to your arms just being completely straight and now the load is completely in your fingers. Now you might be thinking, Doesn't that mean that climbing with bent arms in a higher center of mass position better than completely straight arms? And I'll let you know this now. We got to do both. Now, I'm sure you've seen this example hundreds and hundreds of times, but maybe you just, never put a word or anything to it. The person, right, they'll start in a lowish position. From here, they'll activate some slight bend, grab the hold with the arms bent, straighten, and then with the arms straightened, they'll allow their body weight to sink, put the weight on their hands, and go for a match. Once more, I'm gonna start with straight arms in a low position. I'm gonna go bend my arms a little bit. Once I caught the hold, I'm gonna straighten so that I could replace the weight onto my feet. And then from here, I could go to the next move or the match. And when I go to the next move or match, I'm in this nice straight position. Once I get my next hold, let's assume it's this blue one here. And then I'm gonna repeat the process one more time. All in all, the way I like to think about it is that the straight arm position is typically going to be the starting position of most moves. Now, the straight arm could be a completely straight arm or a slightly bent arm, but it should hardly ever be a completely locked off arm. And then the locked arm position or the bent arm position is the finishing position of most moves when you absorb the shock. Once you absorb the shock, you're then gonna transition from this bent arm position, aka the ending position, back into another starting position. So to wrap it all up real quick, we're gonna start in a straight arm position. When we move to the next hold, we might end up in the bent arm position, which will be known as the finishing position. When we're in this finishing position, we're gonna automatically wanna go back into that straight arm position. Here's how it looks when I exaggerate it. This climb is one of the warm-ups I've done like 100 times. So straight arm position, start, bent, finish. Go back to straight so that I can put the weight in my feet. Bent, which is the finish, go back to straight. From here, I'm gonna bend one more time. Once I got the bend, go back to straight. Voila, bada, bang. Some climbs will allow you to more or less just stay in that straight position the whole time you're climbing it. And if you're technically sound enough, a lot of climbs you don't even need to bend your arm at all. While other climbs will force you to stay in that bent position for optimal use of energy in terms of moving through the problem. And those problems, there's just no way to do it with completely straight arms. Overall, I would like to say, if you could keep it straight, keep it straight. If you have to bend it, then find a way to bring it back to straight. That's the video. I hope you found it useful. Hopefully it didn't get too complicated. And if you like videos like this and you want to become a little bit better climber, I drop videos like this all the time. I suggest you comment, like, subscribe. It helps me, help you become a better climber. See you next time.